Hey YouTube, this is Firewizard23 here to bring you another book review. This is Drown Wednesday, the third book in Garth Nix's Keys to the Kingdom series. Spoilers! When we last left Arthur, he was in a hospital bed with a broken leg, and he had just looked under his pillow and discovered the note from Lady Wednesday saying that he was invited to a particular luncheon with 17 removes. Of 17 removes. And I can only assume it must be an Australian word. Garth Nix is an Australian author. I can only assume reserves must be an Australian word for courses. And Arthur's lying in the bed. Suddenly, a water main breaks, and he is swept directly into the house. Because what has happened is this part of the house. Remember, we've been in the lower house. We've been in the far reaches. We are now in the border sea. Because of the magic of the house, the border sea has actually started to break out of the physical boundaries of the house and is now touching water in the secondary realms. So Arthur is actually able to get transported directly into the border sea via this very faint but there connection. There he discovers that many secondary realm pirates have actually taken up residence inside the house as well because of just this transient nature of the border sea. We discover at the very beginning of this book that Wednesday's Dawn is actually the only one of the Dawn, Noon, and Dusk that are left. And I'll explain why in a moment. And so she's kind of been looking over everything in the border sea, and that's a very difficult task. Arthur, bada bing, bada boom, things happen. Arthur ends up getting to this meeting with John Wednesday thanks to the direct assistance of Wednesday's Dawn, who brings him to a ship where we see this giant whale approaching it, which proceeds to shrink and shrink and shrink and finally become kind of a disfigured woman standing upon the deck. And she understands how repulsive she is, but she's doing all she can to maintain her shape. Inside a rope belt tied around her waist is what appears to be a large fork, and that is the third key, which is a trident. And her story, she's actually one of the only trustees who's actually really not a bad guy. At least not initially. At least at this moment she's not. Not initially. At this moment she's not. Because what happened is, she agreed, just like all the other trustees, they broke the will of the architect and said, we are not going to fulfill the architect's final wish. And she hid her part of the will. The sin that begat her was gluttony, and she started having this completely ravenous appetite that she could not explain. And she used pretty much used all the power of her ki to direct it towards herself to maintain her shape, though she ultimately decided that this ravenousness must be because of the fact that their whole tampering with the will. So she got a hold of Lady Friday, one of her very close friends, who she's like, to basically say, we need to get a meeting of all the trustees, and we got to put the will back and restate the will, because all this stuff is happening, and this is terrible. And the trustees, yeah, they fucked her over. They, all except for Monday, who was too slothful to care. Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday all came and attacked her. They stripped all the power of her ki away from her and cast her into the border sea, and she became a giant beluga whale. I think they call her a beluga whale. Giant whale. Blue whale, at least. And what this caused when she became the whale was it caused what was known as the Great Deluge in the border sea. And all of the islands that make up the areas of the border sea where the denizens work got flooded, with the exception of Port Wednesday, which is the only place where any elevators exist to go to other places of the house. All the denizens who are now living as pirates on ships and stuff used to be like clerks and accountants and stuff. They used to actually do things in this part of the house, but now they can't. And in the completely gruesome scene where Arthur's watching John Wednesday just eat and eat and eat this entire feast that's on top of this ship, he asks her, where is the third part of the will? That is the way to get around this. He cannot take the key from her at this point because it has no power. The third part of the will could give the key back its power. But she says she doesn't remember because all the trustees broke into her mind and they stole the location of where she took the key. Where she hid this part of the will, so she can't remember where it is. And So Arthur proceeds on a quest with the mariner and the other pirates, and ultimately they do discover where the third part of the will is, and they point at a big chart saying "Var." And sure enough, they point inside Drowned Wednesday herself. Being a giant whale, a la Pinocchio, she has swallowed many things over the years, and as it turns out, there is a worldlet inside her that she has swallowed that does contain the third part of the will. Adventure happens, they end up getting swallowed by Drowned Wednesday, go inside her, they find the worldlet, and inside this cavernous area, there are denizens praising a small fish inside a goldfish bowl, and it is the third part of the will. Using some of the house magic, they managed to break out. They're floating on the border sea, him and two of his, I believe it's Susie and one of his friends, Leaf. They're floating on the border sea, and the giant beluga whale is coming towards all of them because I think their ship got destroyed, and they're just floating there. And the perch is like, let me out. It's time to do this. He floats out, he swims out of his goldfish bowl, and he swims in front of Drowned Wednesday, and we hear him intone out, Drowned Wednesday, it is time for you to fulfill your duty as a trustee of the architect. And by his very words, Drowned Wednesday gets all of her power back, and she shrinks and shrinks and shrinks, and kind of leaps up from the water almost the size of a dolphin, but then lands upon the sea as if it were land. And she's fucking beautiful. Like, she's got her full shape back, and she's wait, I got it marked here because it's one of my favorite passages in this book. What is it? Here's what. Carp. He's a carp is the third part. Wednesday. I, part 3 of the will of our supreme creator, the ultimate architect of all, do summon thee to fulfill thy duty as trustee of the said will. She was not the misshapen, lumpy thing Arthur had seen before. She was beautiful, impeccably dressed in a gown of shimmering mother of pearl, the trident of the third key glowing in her hand. Only the uncontrollable trembling of that hand and the blue blood flowing down from her bitten lip indicated the difficulty she had keeping such a presentable shape. I, Wednesday, trustee of the ultimate architect of all, do acknowledge the third part of the will, and ask into whose hands shall I place that which was entrusted to me. I cannot tell you how long it has taken me to try to remember that line of dialogue, because I think that is the awesomest line of dialogue ever. So, she's held up by her friends, and he spoke quickly and clearly. I, Arthur, the anointed heir to the kingdom, claim this key, and with it the mastery of the border sea. I claim it by blood and bone and contest, out of truth in testament, and against all trouble. The trident flew from Wednesday's hand and flew into his hands, and Drowned Wednesday crashes in pain into the sea because she now doesn't have the power of the key anymore. Arthur tries to use the key to make her whole, but he can't, and Drowned Wednesday says it doesn't matter, nothing is eating at her at this point. Because the world that's inside her broke when they escaped, there's nothing just crashing through her body, and so she can't even maintain herself, and she dies. And Drowned Wednesday is no more. And we kind of leave it there. They end up getting to Port Wednesday, and Arthur wishes to leave. And that's where our story concludes. I enjoyed this one. I felt so much sadness for Wednesday. She got fucked. I mean, there's no other way to describe it. She actually wanted to do... I mean, yeah, she did the wrong thing at first, but then she wanted to correct it. But then the trustees just fucked her over. You feel so much sadness for her that she really tried to make this all right. Anyway, that's 3 trustees down, 4 to go. And this is Firewizard23. Take care and bye-bye for now, everybody.